I guess this is kind of like part two of comparing everything to Firefly in book blurbs. It's not so much the characters themselves. Like half the time when people are comparing in these blurbs, they're specifically talking about like, yes, ragtag band of misfits versus big corrupt kind of fascist government, blah 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 setup. They don't really go into a little bit more of why they're comparing their book to Firefly, say meets Star Trek or whatever else kind of setup you have. And I think that's what gets me the most, because when I do check out a fair amount of samples, even if say like they say, oh, we're like Dead Space meets Event Horizon or something like that, I'll look in it and it's like, this is more like just zombies in space or something. Yeah. So when you're doing comparisons to your book to another series, to try to catch reader eyeballs, I guess try to do a blurb of like, do you like, do you enjoy aspirational heroes, and like mention like heroics of old, blah, blah. Just do little blurbs like that to where you can tie it into like what part of the wheelhouse of this show or this other book are you comparing to. Like, say, like, if I put in my blurb, this is like Babylon 5 meets House or something like that. Or, something like that. I would go into a little bit like, is it more of the, like, the social drama of Babylon 5? Is it more of the space opera aspect? Is it more of, the, basically an alliance of different races versus the great evil, that sort of thing. You just gotta kind of get into a little bit more of like what part of this wheelhouse are you comparing this to? Because most of the time when I've read a fair amount of samples, because I legitimately read through the whole sample to see if it'll catch my eye, and most times when people are saying this is Firefly meets X, you'll open up with a character that's kind of like Saul Ty from the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, kind of mixed in with who I want to say, maybe a little bit of Captain Mal, maybe a little bit of that, but it's mostly kind of like this like roughneck kind of you know guy that has potential to have charm, but very rough around the edges, and a lot of them kind of open with that. So I guess that is a fairly popular theme or trope to throw at people. It's just not all. I'm not always in the mood for such a thing, because I've seen a fair amount of the grizzled veteran leading the way type of deal. Um, I mean, they did make Ty pretty likable at some points, even in the reimagined stuff. But overall, the original Battlestar Galactica had more genuine optimism. I keep going back to that, but yes, I like the fact that it did have that. And I guess also the reimagined series, even at the time, even though I wasn't as burnt out as on it as I am now, in terms of like oh, there's some more gritty kind of, oh, we're having the abortion versus pro-life issue with the show right now, which, I mean, if you're looking at it even in that way, it's like a 50,000 survivors. You're gonna have to start having babies, unless you have an artificial way to basically grow more babies faster, like simultaneously. Because some science fiction does have that, where you can basically grow a baby in an artificial womb, so that way the medical technology can like correct, say like if the kid has nearsightedness or potential to be deaf or something like something like that, where there's a science fiction setup where it's easier to have children if you want to. And even in some of these setups, it helps couples that normally can't have kids due to infertility or things like that. There's that whole setup. But to get a little bit more back on track, yeah, with I don't mind westerns in space. It's just the amount of volume that people constantly compared. Like, I know you're trying to get certain fan bases to take a look at your books, but I see that as kind of as more of a double-edged sword, because even trying to cater to the Star Wars fandom or Star Trek fandom or anything else like that, they don't really want your IP. They want their IP, but without woke claptrap. I mean, it's like pulling nails from a board where it's like, if only like even 10% of you would pay attention to some other IP that is not filled with dreck and propaganda, then you might have fun with something else. But yeah, I can see the pluses and drawbacks to it. Like for people who genuinely love many aspects of Firefly, I imagine that's like a siren song to them, like seeing the blurbs mentioned everywhere. Like, yes, this is just like Firefly. But another book picked up, another series I picked up, they mentioned that in the blurb. I'm reading it, and one has the grizzled old veteran, and he has kind of like a hodgepodge salvation, or not salvation, but salvage crew going around, getting stuff, and then there's the corrupt main government stepping on the little colonials and all that sort of thing. So I guess it just depends on what the reader's in the mood for, and try to make it clear which thematic elements of popular series are you trying to throw into your books. That's the reason why, if you're making like an amalgamation of all sorts of things you've enjoyed, like kind of like what I'm doing with Upload Protocol, I'm not really going to directly compare it to stuff, because you'll be able to see as you're reading it. It's like, yeah, this is where this person got their influences from. All I'm really going to admit and basically put in the blurb eventually is, yes, it's a superhero space opera. Boom, boom. There you go. And I might just mix up with words that I'm looking for as a reader. Do you miss optimistic, utopic, kind of starry-eyed look at the future? Where every day would be kind of like, what's this new adventure? I'd put something like that in there. Or do you just miss heroes being heroes? Do you miss the cardinal virtues? That sort of thing. I would mention in my blurb what I'm missing as a reader, basically. That's all I'm really coming down to. So, I guess I could put this in as a follow-up. Mm, what have you. Uh, Comments and everything else below if you want to. Either way, I'm good to go. This is just one Florida woman on the internet saying goodbye.